I've been actually watching some of your LinkedIn shorts recently again too. Obviously, your little walking thoughts; those are always good.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like your one
Those are
recently, what was it on coaches, influencers versus experts? I think it is.
yeah,
I like
yeah.
that topic.
Oh yeah. Well, it's a huge topic today for me as an old guy and my generation and the generations below me with the alarming things that I'm seeing that younger coaches are doing with a complete lack of regard or total ignorance of things that were done 50, 60, 70 years ago. And yeah, and repeating mistakes that don't need to be repeated. Not that we had the answers, but all of us in my generation made a lot of mistakes, and we're all willing to share them. So
Hmm.
it's kind of interesting. Yeah, influencers versus experts. Yeah.
I, I really like that. I did a post on it too, actually influenced by you on that. But it's funny. Like, what are you seeing? What are you seeing now within young coaches then that has kind of spurred that debate?
Well, I won't name the athlete, but it's an athlete that I'm working with from a Commonwealth country. We'll leave it that way. A big island, and the S&C coaches, which I abhor. I abhor that name anyway.
Yeah.
I think it should be something else. Athletic development is my choice. Are coming out of school, and man, they are book smart. Man, they can recite, the movement of the mitochondria within the muscle and all of that, but they can't coach. They
Mm.
they they have very very little hands-on knowledge of what it takes to communicate with the athlete about what good movement is, and just a flat out coach, progressions, things like that, and
Mm.
everything. So much of what's being done today under the umbrella or the guise of sports science, which I call sports science-y, as well. Gee, you came in today, your jump on the force platform, which isn't a force platform, by the way, it's a bathroom scale, is, you're off today. Gee, maybe we should adjust your training instead of taking a step back and watching the athlete walk in the gym, walk out on the field, and talk to him. Like,
Hmm.
well, how are you doing today? Had a tough one yesterday. How do you feel? I'm a little sore here. Good woman, Okay. And I'm not anti-sport science, but you probably heard me say this before. Look, I'm 78 years old. When I started coaching, biomechanics was not a defined field. It was called kinesiology. Became more of a defined field really through the work of a Kiwi, Jim Hay, and some other colleagues like him in the mid 70s, and that exercise physiology was the sport science. Sports psychology wasn't a defined field until the mid 70s. A lot of these things. So when people say, I get a lot from today's generations, well, where's the research for that? And I go, well, there's a lot of best practices informed by research. There's a really good study, overview publication done by, I can't remember the journal, it's put out by Human Kinetics, where they looked at the top 100 sports science papers of all time. So that encompasses those. Only 6 of the studies of the top 100 were done after 2000. And if you look at published, like here in exercise and science and sport, which America, most of the citations are from the 2000s, and I'm going, what's wrong with this picture? If the landmark studies were done in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, why aren't they being cited? So for me and my colleagues, I think that I think it's a terrific advantage, that
Hmm.
we can take a broader view. And I'm not anti, but believe me, I'm not anti-science. But like I said, the key thing is you're informed by science, not driven by it. That's the
Yeah.
key. At the end of the day, your fighters have got to produce. My athletes got to produce. It's as simple as that. And so we've kind of gone overboard with load management and that, which load management is good coaching. It's
Yeah.
good planning. It's being aware. I can't tell you the number in 56 years of coaching, the number of times I've pulled athletes out of sessions. That's enough. No, they didn't always like it. And they sometimes, and there'd always be a dialogue about why. Some of it, I got a hunch. Okay. Trust me, I got a hunch. Doesn't look right now, And okay, and I also made a mistake many times of doing too much,
Mm.
too. But yeah,
I've
sorry,
definitely
I got on a rant there, but
no perfect. I love the rounds on the podcast because you get real in depth into what you're thinking. But yeah, I've definitely formed. I mean, anyone who's coached long enough makes these mistakes. I've made load management mistakes being too precious, I guess you could say, and being too in the numbers and being like, oh, he's going to hit X amount of distance this week and he's going to play. We need to manage them. It's like, but do you really? Like these guys can handle more than you think. And
yeah,
then when your week is when stuff is planned properly, it's very hard to go really overboard. Like even if you track like say session duration times RPE and you get like a training load, it's very hard to really exceed that when you're only doing 60 to 90 minute sessions and that kind of stays constant throughout the week, unless you're like, suddenly doing 3 hour sessions at high
yes,
intensity,
yes,
then obviously, but that very rarely happens. So,
yeah.
at what point do you need to really get that? Or how often do you really need to intervene in areas like that when everything's kind of consistent and they've kind of built up that tolerance to it?
Well, one of the companies, again, not to be named, really good people, good, and I rate them highly, but I'm not into promoting things. And had a really good discussion twice now with one. And again, what do the numbers mean? The numbers
Mm.
in context, like there's a new thing, you've seen it now, the big thing, Vern Gambetta, wide receiver for the somebody ran 23 miles an hour in the game, or the defensive back ran 23 miles an hour. Yeah, because he got beat and he was chasing somebody. What a meaningless number, and 23 miles an hour for how long? I mean, if you could do that for an extended period of time, you don't be in football, you should be in the Olympic Games, and that. So yeah, it's funny. It's fascinating because I remember I was talking to a friend of mine. I went to grad school in 73, 74 at Stanford, and I wrote a paper about a lot of the thing here, speculating like if we could measure this, if we could, I was thinking more track ground contact time and things like that. And we can measure so much now, but it's what's meaningful. What's meaningful? I'm not against measuring it, but I think what you do is you look at trends over time, and see like, you worked with rugby and that, and, I've not day to day worked with rugby, but I've worked with union, league, and sevens for periods of time and been around them, the best teams in the world, really. And, there's just some stuff you got to do. You better do it,
Mm-hmm.
and it's as simple as that. So no matter
Yeah.
what the numbers say. So
Yeah, that's the thing as well, as you mentioned, like we're talking with athletes and how they feel, and maybe going, you get some objective jump number or something, and they might be fatigued, but there's so much that goes on in a session and in an athlete that after a warm up or after they do something, they start to feel better anyway. Like
yeah,
that's something like I would use like a wellness questionnaire, and maybe someone would flag up, but they'll just be talking to them, be like, "Oh, how do you feel?" Blah blah. Blah.
yeah,
Oh, they're okay. Or once it'll be like, okay, you just go through the session. We'll see how you feel, etc. And usually they just come right. It's just movement at that point,
absolutely, absolutely.
Versus being like knee jerk reaction, like, oh shit, he can potentially injure himself. We need to deload and all this other stuff. But it's like, if you talk to them, you start to understand them. You get a kind of understanding of the team vibe as well. When it's really
Exactly.
quiet, you're like, okay, maybe we'll switch up the session quickly and play some games, etc. There's so many things you can do versus just taking the data at face value and
Right.
then just being like, oh yeah, this is what we're going to do now because this number says XYZ.
Yeah, yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, and that's why also we can move on from this, but even the wellness questionnaires, with I've I've seen with with pro teams and pro athletes, they know how to manipulate those now. The best thing I've seen and I loved was Melbourne Storm rugby league team. My
Hmm.
good friend is Lachlan Penfold is I don't know what his title is. He's in charge of the show, but he's very hands on. And like right now, I'm sitting. My desk is facing the door, and every player walks through the door. The only two of them can fit through the door at a time, and they greet each player every day, and they can see through the window. They can watch them from the walk to their car, And I'm going, this is brilliant, And they know. I mean, one of the guys, they just had a baby 3 days before, and they said, well, how are you sleeping? And he said, not. And that. So right away, that's a flag. Adjust training, and that. So it's knowing your athletes, and that, and because that's why we're called coaches.
If you're anything like me, you're short on time. Kids, family, work, training, and having to cook meals on top of that is just not going to happen. So I'm happy to announce Trifecta Nutrition are sponsoring the podcast. You get epic meals like these ones: turkey taco bowl, Texas barbecue protein plate. These are a couple of my favorites. But it means you don't have to prepare all your own meals, and it makes getting and good nutrition relatively easy. I've tried other meal delivery companies. Most of them are too high fat, not enough carbohydrates, or if you're getting kits where you have to cook it yourself, the portions for two is actually for one, especially if you are like me and you're training often. So if you want to take something off your plate and have meals like this delivered to your door, go down the description. There's a link there where you can order Trifecta meals. This is the performance line, which are higher protein and higher carbohydrate. And you can use code LIFTBIG40. You'll get 40% off your first order. Yeah.
Enough said. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's missed on TikTok and Instagram now, unfortunately. But this is going to go in random directions, just on random thoughts I've had. I mean, I've probably brought up your name multiple times on various podcasts recently, just with all the stuff you've had an influence on me on and things like that. But I was actually just recently I started doing more of your lunge matrices.
Oh yeah.
Those are very, very nice ones. Do you want to maybe run through some of them and kind of how they came about, what you're doing, why?
Yeah, the lunge matrix or lunge series, I call it. There's three variations in the basic series, and in my standard warm up that I use really across sports, we even use it in swimming. It's the we got mini band walk. It's third step in the warm up, and what you're doing is so you do with lunge and reach overhead, lunge and reach, and it's forward, side or lateral, and rotational. Okay, so you do three, you do right, left, side, right, left, like that. Then you go on to lunge and reach up. What did I just say? Lunge and reach up is the first one. Then lunge and reach out. So with two hands. And so now to start adding up the reps, a lot of times I'll only go to 2 reps, not 3, 2, by the way, modified that because there's, and then the last one is lunge and reach across. So if I lunge out on my right, I reach across and have to touch the ground in front of my right leg, so the opposite arm, and like that. So that's been. I don't believe in injury prevention and identifying things as injury prevention, but the first step in the warm up is mini band series, and that's the second one is walking rotations, and the third one is that, and those are all injury prevention. Never tell the player, never tell the athlete that. And there's variations of that, done that virtually every warm-up. Now, if there's 2 warm-ups in a day, one thing to remember too, the second warm-up, if it's within 3 to 4 hours of the first session, it's usually abbreviated. And we might, if we do lunge and reach in the morning, we won't do them in the afternoon. Okay, like that. And so there's, it's incorporating all planes of motion through a full range with under how would you say it, with rhythmic control. Okay, it's not ballistic, it's not slow, steady. It's just controlled. 1, 2, 3, like that. So no, it's when I look at the number of groin injuries that I see happen, and again, the proof of the pudding is the people that have used this routine. I don't know if when you came to Gain, if Nick Garcia was there. Nick's a
Yeah, he
brilliant
was.
high school S&C who works with 16 sports by himself, and in since 2003 he's been there. So however many years, 21 years, they've had one groin pull. And I mean they play at the highest level of high school sports in Southern California. I mean, many of their athletes go on to higher level, and so I don't think that's just coincidence. So
Mm.
yeah, it's doing that. And then the other thing about this is I call it, some of these movements, or if you want to call them matrices, are Swiss Army knives in a sense. So I can really come in, and they come into the weight room and it's a winger, or it's somebody who has to move a lot of different directions, even a big lineman or something will do that loaded. So they'll use,
Mm.
depending on body weight, a percentage of body weight, and they'll go through lunge and reach forward for one set, lunge and reach side for one set, lunge and reach across. So once you learn the movements, then you can apply those in many different ways. So that's the idea.
You mentioned how you do it kind of like in this rhythm and timing. It was like 1, 2, and I know in your leg circuit you also have almost a rhythm and timing there, where it's like every second should be a squat. Is that something you like to do with with most of, I guess, your quote unquote drills kind of thing? Is that something you like to implement
across
into the rhythms?
across the spectrum. I mean, look, everything is velocity based training, but I like to take it before velocity. You've got rhythm, tempo, and timing. Rhythm, tempo, timing, range of motion. Think about dance. Okay, so leg circuit is 1 per second. You're trying to, on the lunge, it's hard to achieve 1 per second, but it's fast
Mm.
eccentric work.
Yeah.
And you can load it, but you can't, if the load,
Well, I can't finish at body weight, so I ain't loading it. That leg circuit's hard.
well, I mean, my beach volleyball players were doing it with 30-pound weight vest on and stuff like that.
Wow.
Yeah. You better. Summer McIntosh, who won a few gold medals last time, some world records, was doing it with a 15-pound weight vest on. So you want to build up to that, but the key is, and the reps drop. Sometimes we do mini leg circuit, 3-rep, half leg circuit, full leg circuit, but the key is you got to keep the rhythm and tempo, and that's what I think we're. It was something that it was always there in my background, but I think I've become a lot more aware of that in my old age, in the last 20, 25 years, as it's just a big dance, and it's about what shape. This is the way I think of it now too. Let's think about shapes. So think of a shape. Let's say a baseball pitcher. Okay, he starts in a big tall shape, then he goes into a smaller shape, then he elongates, and that. So the way I look at it, the way I analyze movement now, relative to you, is what shapes can you make? What shapes can't you make? How do we reconcile the two? And then it's the paradigm then is it strength? Is it speed? Is it body awareness? Is it something, a joint restriction on prior injury, something like that? So that takes me back. And so you think about lunge and reach, you're going from tall to long to overhead, all of that. So it's then the other thing is testing is training, training is testing. So it all fits together. So I can look at all these every day and look at all these pieces and see how they fit together and where they're working. So
Yeah, I love.
that's why it's a system. That's why it's a system. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no, you're good. I love the talk on rhythm. I mean, I must have been influenced from you back in the day, even with Gain and even some of the old content you've done around just rhythm and timing, and then it's kind of like you see really good athletes have it like at this innate rhythm in the game already, and it's almost like, well, because it can't be measured, it's almost like discarded, right? Like it's just like whatever. It's not physiology. It's not mechanical output. Nothing. So whatever.
Yeah,
Don't even worry
yeah.
about it. But
It's
it's such an
observable.
interesting, yeah, it's
Yeah,
such an interesting space because it is like the top athletes just have it. And I've played around with rhythm a lot in different things. I think mainly from your influence with things like even just like using different balls within training games, changing the tempo of the training game,
yeah,
walking, running, jogging. I did one where I was like they were walking through waist high mud, pretending.
yeah,
Yeah, so changing
yeah,
rhythms
yeah,
like
yeah,
that, you
yeah,
know.
yeah.
It'll be interesting to
Changing.
kind of go into your ideas and philosophies around changing rhythm within training and how you may go about that, and then are there any outcomes you're trying to see from it, or is it more kind of just like play and exploration?
Oh no, I try to. It's become a for me. It's become a conscious thing. It's something I really. I don't want the athlete to become a robot to that. You
Yeah,
know.
100%.
Yeah, that's really really important. So sometimes it's just this nonverbal. Sometimes I will give them a target on certain things like touch my foot, touch my foot, touch my foot, and I'll move my foot slow or I'll move my foot fast. So you elicit it, but that's done driven by. I don't want them thinking about that. I want that subliminal and reactive. Okay, and it's if you look at the jersey behind me, Elise Perry, who's athlete, probably the best cricket player, female cricket player of all time. That's probably we sat down with Eddie Jones 3 years ago and had coffee, and he says, "Well, what's the biggest change? What's the biggest thing you've done working with Vern?" And she says, "Rhythm and tempo." It's not. I mean, hell, she's 35 now. She was 31 then. She's seen every exercise in the world. But execution of that and if you want to put it, the broad umbrella is coordination, right? You read all the Eastern literature about, and they always have chapters on coordination, but that was so implicit in their lifestyle with the kids growing up with gymnastics and that, and I know this is pointed toward martial arts. I mean, think of that. Think of changing rhythms when you're punching or when you're lunging to somebody, and that that can be a terrific tactical advantage too, as well as yeah. So does that answer the
Yeah, 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 yeah.
question?
I've kind of defined it for myself, at least within sport. It's kind of like disrupting your opponent's rhythm while imposing your
Yes.
own, and you see it. I mean, you see it when like momentum shifts in fights or rugby or any sport where a team has momentum and it's like their rhythm is on, and other teams will try to slow down the game so they can disrupt the other team's rhythms. There's all sorts of stuff
Yeah.
going on, and you mentioned about coordination. Is there a point where training coordination, can go too far or be just so out of it? Because you can see what people call quote unquote coordination training, and it's like catching tennis balls off a
Oh,
wall, touching flashing lights and shit like that. Where's the line for coordination training?
well, it's common sense. I mean, you can touch all the lights you want and you get your ass kicked.
Yeah,
I mean, it's as simple as that. I mean, I call it getting cute. I want you. The athlete's going to tell me right away. I look at their eyes. I look at their face. I want to look at movements that lead into sport specific movements, and incorporate that. Don't. I think the rule of thumb is it's bad to have a negative rule, but I try to stay away from uh, plastic, rigid environments. You know what I'm saying? Because every sport that I've worked with, 22 internationally, they're most of them are open skill. Well, yes and no. I mean, there's a few of them, cricket batting and baseball batting. Well, they are open skill in a
yeah,
sense.
that's technically open. I mean, if you've got different pitches or different bowlers that have different actions, you having to
Yeah, yeah. So,
decipher that
but
information.
it's yeah, we've just gone crazy with like juggling is okay for hand-eye coordination. I We used to do a little bit of that, but as far as see, the question I always ask is return on investment. So if I'm going to spend 10 minutes a day juggling, is that going to make me 10 minutes better at my game?
According to
You
TikTok,
know?
yes.
Huh?
According to TikTok and Instagram, it will.
Oh, of course. Of course, yeah, because they're selling a juggling video.
That was a
No, I mean,
trend. It was a trend.
I'm not saying do it, but I'm jealous of the time. Look, James, I've had in 56 years of coaching at all levels, I've never, ever, ever had unlimited time to train.
Yeah.
Or if I do now, at least has more time, I'm jealous about that time. I want it focused, And so I've got to look at what are the things that I'm doing? Are they meaningful? Do they transfer? Or the other thing that I use a lot, and John Pryor has done this a lot with rugby, with Japan rugby. Lead in. Does this lead in to a skill?
Yeah.
So they marry it, and it leads into a skill. See, good enough. But I don't, unless I'm working with Cirque du Soleil, but or something like that. So
Yeah.
yeah.
That's a good point. And I wanted to come back as well. You mentioned obviously about the groin injuries and stuff like that with the lunge matrix. Obviously, hamstrings are another issue that are still persistent everywhere. But there's like I don't know, this is just me thinking off the top of my head around shitty theories on this, but there's like a overemphasis on these muscle groups because they're often injured. And I always think like, I even think back to some of my training programs. Like I never trained the groin directly with any of my athletes. Like it was never a thing, and we never had groin problems. But it's like as a lot of this say, everyone's pushing all these Nordics, then Copenhagen planks, everything else. Do you think this overemphasis on training these muscle groups is potentially, I'm not going to say causing the problem, but just not
It's
making
causing.
it?
I'll say it. It's causing the problem. They hate me. I mean, I have my
Yeah, so you have a lot of haters for for the Nordic
and
stuff.
that
It's
kind
quite
of
funny.
stuff. I don't care.
Yeah.
I want to be proven wrong. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
So I look at the individuals, the teams that use the methodology that we're talking about. They don't have those injuries.
Yeah.
You're going to pull it. There's sometimes like on a wet field, and you put your foot out. There's, some things groin and hamstring, but Nordics are not the answer. They're isolating the hamstring. And the big argument is, well, they're working eccentrically. Well, the hamstring works at both joints. It works eccentrically for a while. It works isometrically, and it also works concentrically. And it's, and you're just look at the shape that you're putting the body in. It has no relationship to how the hamstring works and functions. Same thing with groin. The adductors. That's where the mini band series, it's too cheap. You buy 10 mini bands for $11 and do that every day, and you don't have groin problems. But I'll say this, and the original Nordic guys, they will. I mean, I know there's. I see this. Somebody's following. No, I'm not paranoid, but no, like that's become the joke. When the original study was flawed. The original study, if you go back to the original study, one group did Nordic hamstring curl and normal soccer training. The other team did normal
Soccer training, right? Yeah.
What the fuck is normal soccer training? Did each team do the exact same thing?
It means they didn't lift weights.
They never did. Yeah, like what did they do? Listen, I'm not the smartest tool in the shed, but come on. And that goes back almost 30 years now. But once it gets in the literature, look out. And again, the dumbest doctor is smarter than the smartest performance coach or whatever.
Yeah.
So as soon as you have an MD or a PhD or something, but I'll go to my grave fighting this every way I can. So,
yeah. It's something I've been thinking over the past few years, like this overemphasis on just these individual muscle groups and whether it is potentially just causing more problems than it's helping. Because everyone's just trying to balance the hamstrings or do these Copenhagen planks and making them more intense and more intense. And it's like, if anyone's done like, if anyone's done like maybe, as an example, high rep squats or maybe done high rep lunges and haven't done them in a while, and you wake up the next day, like your adductors like destroyed from lunges,
Yeah.
you know, and it's kind of like you're getting them in a movement that's they're probably going to have to go through in training versus the Copenhagen
Right.
plank, where you may be in the shortened position, holding it, and you know you're getting much out of it.
Well, even the big emphasis on isometrics today. Look,
Mm.
in 1962, when I started weight training, functional isometrics were the rage in isometrics, and they helped me as a growing 15 years old to be able to get stronger in certain positions. And I use isometrics, but the isometrics aren't the be all end all. To put the hamstring in an extended position and hold that isometrically for 30 seconds, what does that do? And the way I put it, here's a simple test to put. Talk to the muscle, be a little weird and talk to the muscle. So I'm going to say, Mr. Hamstring, so I'm going to do some Nordics with you today. And I want you to tell me, are you going to scream or sing? And you do 2 Nordics and, it hurts. I don't like it. Now you do 3 set, you do lunges. Oh man, that's a beautiful song. It sings, right? You're working those muscles in synergy with everybody else, So I just and the proof of the pudding is in injuries. Look, now everybody. The other one pet peeve, if you'll let me rant just for a second,
Yeah,
is
go.
calves. You'd never heard of calf pulls until the last 4 years, and ruptured Achilles started with the onset of anabolic steroids in sport in the 60s. You can almost trace that. But and I saw something from some influencer. The soleus is the strongest muscle in the body. Really? That's absolutely freaking amazing. I just learned something. It's not. And so doing seated calf raises is going to look at how the um, the gastroc soleus functions. It decelerates the foot into the ground, and then it only helps with push off in the last third, So in my generation, I did calf raises. We did 3 times a week, 3 sets to burnout with a 250-pound guy on my back. My
So you're
calves,
you're a bodybuilder.
my thought process, it would help. And my calves were huge. And then I got to track and I had to, I was playing American. But so I've lived it. We didn't have calf pulls. I don't know why. I had a lot of Achilles issues though. I know
Mm.
that. And when I stopped doing all the calf raises, it took about 6 months. The Achilles issues went away. So again, that's a case study of one. But those are the things that make you think, and that would be the operable term that I would say. Think, think. Analyze. Look at this. Understand muscle function. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I wanted to come also into, I guess it falls under rhythm and time, but this game speed and distortion kind of idea. And I actually, when I was on Joel Smith's Just Fly podcast recently, I was talking to him about your old Gain podcast, because I have a little black book of training stuff from Gain and all different stuff. And I wrote in there episode 81 of the Gaincast. And that one was that I think it was like 2017, that one. And it was about distorting the game and not replicating it. And it was just the idea about being 30% of a game speed. I mean, I've taken that and run with it with all this different stuff. But it'd be interesting to kind of go into this idea of distorting game speed and how someone could potentially look to do that across different sports, and what does it even mean to do that?
Well, yeah, it's good. Really, really good question. What does it mean? I mean, first of all, it's not sprint speed. Game speed is not sprint speed, and I, myself included, have spent a lot of time trying to make real people real pretty, nice, tall. But in 90% of the games that we work with, it's 3 steps and change direction, shift weight, something like that. So the first thing that a lot of us did was, well, so you came and watch an athletic performance practice, and we were just taking moves from the game and imitating them, with a weight vest on or something, and slowing them down. And I'm going, wait. Then I started thinking, well, this doesn't really make sense. Let's figure out ways that we can make the player, because the athlete, because a lot of the games we talk about are about exploiting space, denying space, that kind of stuff. And game speed is really the ability to read, react, change direction, accelerate, decelerate in the context of the game rapidly under control. So we started creating scenarios and situations where it was maybe extended out a step. So you have to go a little bit faster and add reaction to not a light, but to another body and that kind of stuff as a stimulus. Even tag games, things like that. I don't know if I'm doing a good job of that, but again, what we did with soccer goalkeepers back in the day, we would do a in a sand volleyball court and then onto grass. So you would do some sort of typical programmed agility drill for 5 reps, and then 5 reps immediately on the grass, so it was faster. So slow to fast, and then fast to slow, things like that. And there's a lot of ways to create, with without going nuts. So creating with stretch cord and that, some little overspeed scenarios, where you have to get there faster and that under control. So, yeah, it's creativity, it's imagination, it's working closely with the sport coaches. So you know the game and the athlete. I mean, we did a thing with a long time ago with this. It was on the U.S. World Cup team where we just put two augers in the ground. He had a belt. He had a belt on, and with two stretch cords. And all he had to do, he had to go back. If you can imagine now, the stretch cord's here. It's stretching out, and then I'd play the ball to him. And I'd have two balls, like 1-2, 1-2, like that. Or I'd call out chest, head, things like that. Now he was coming off of 9 knee surgeries, and things like that. But so to me, that's distorting the game, and you can do that in threes with players. So, yeah, I mean, I don't. Does that make sense?
Yeah, let me throw you some examples of stuff that I've done from that might be interesting, because I've thought about a lot how we should do it, and I don't know if I would do it exactly the same again. But so rugby union, rugby sevens. So when I was with Romanian rugby, we would do like attacking phases, and I had the peak like 2, 3, and 5 minute periods within some of our games, and I had it in meters per minute. I don't know if I'd do it in meters per minute now, but regardless,
Yeah,
when you say
yeah,
say it was 120 meters per minute, I would add 30% and be like, okay, we're just running a 3-minute attacking block,
right.
and we're just trying to exceed that pace for that entire attacking block. So if the ball goes out, the ball goes somewhere, another one just gets rolled in, and they just go against an opposed defense. So that was something we would do for like distorting game speed. Now, whether I would do that,
to me, that's a good example.
yeah,
That's a good example. Yeah,
and
yeah.
like whether I do accelerations or maybe make it more position specific, I don't know. Either way, but that was one. Obviously, and that's all with the sport coaches, right? Another one, the sport coach, like I guess you could say like counter attacking or maybe more quote unquote agility based stuff, where it's like a chaotic game where more players are coming in different ways and they're having to problem solve 2v3s, etc. But the other one we did in sevens, it was, I guess you could throw on the worst case scenario too. Even like we had no time to prepare for Olympic prep. It was crazy, but we basically took defensive like contacts per minute and then just added again 30%. So I think it was like 11 total contacts, and then we created this grid where they would have to run through different contact scenarios. So they still have to think.
Beautiful.
So hit certain rucks, but they'd have to decide based on the position of the person or the hit shield what they had to do. Then they'd have to wrestle a ball off someone. So again, another form of contact. And then they would have to sprint back like they were chasing a kick. It was brutal, but it was like within this short time frame, within the minute, it's like, okay, you're exceeding the context that you could have. And so it was kind of just some ways we'd looked at distorting it. That's also
But
quite
that's
interesting.
that's perfect, and you're not doing
Mm,
it for an hour. You're doing it
yeah,
for brief bursts.
yeah.
See, I do a thing called living cones. I can do it in basketball. I can do it in rugby. I can do it in soccer. So I no ball. I can put a ball in it. There's six of us, five players in a square area, and they're
Mm,
moving. And I have to get through them. They can't touch me. Okay,
wait.
but
Okay.
so they're moving. So they might be going forward, backwards. I've got to get to the other side of the square,
Okay.
and then I can make it contact. So I have to hit each one, no two people consecutive. So create constraints,
Yeah.
things like that. So yeah, and rugby, it's so important to getting up off the ground, and if you want to play faster in American football, you've got X amount of time between plays. Get up off the ground, get back, and
Mm,
things like that. So yeah, it's some of it, and it's CLI constraints led approach. That's a big part of distorting the game, I think,
hmm
too.
Yeah.
I like to do. I'd do stuff if I were coaching basketball again. I do stuff with two balls, with two different color balls. Same size basket and that, and then you create a constraint.
Yeah.
Or you take the basketball court and say, draw between each free throw line like that. Everything has to happen outside of that. So
Mm,
now what do you do? So now you've got a problem to solve. So you've distorted the game.
yeah.
That's that, and I think this is where it's really got to be done in cooperation with the sport coach too. Now we can do a
Sure.
lot of stuff without that, but I think doing it in cooperation with the sport coach really, and that's too where this idea of lead in. So use a distorted activity to lead into a regular drill,
Mm.
a regular 5v5 in basketball or 11v11 or
Yeah.
whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah. I love the different balls one. Like I had multiple games that I'd run through depending on the sessions, and it would be like offside touch variations, small grid tag variations, full
Yeah.
goal variations, and I'll just in the middle of the game, it's a tennis ball or a mini basketball or a rugby ball or
Sure.
fuck whatever else we had at the time,
Well, think of
and you
think
have
of
to,
how many times you've done it, and I did it as an athlete. Where you line up on the touch line and you do sprints. Like, what the hell? What does that have to do with it? And you met Jimmy Radcliffe at
Mhm.
Kane, and when he and Chip Kelly, they never did conditioning. The practice was so intense, and they've done that with Japan rugby. Eddie did that with England, and in rugby. John Wooden did that in basketball a
Mm.
million years ago, and play, you know, you just, it just, yeah, it's using some imagination and that,
Yeah,
speed
yeah,
it up.
it definitely takes some session planning, which I think a lot of
Oh
teams
yeah.
teams may
It's
not be
not, it's
doing.
not, yeah, it's not just pulling it out of thin air and just getting weird. I mean, see,
Yeah.
again, that's where people have gone astray, and, but like using Elise as an example, we call it she does cricket speed. So it's wheel drill. It's 3 steps. I do it steps, not distance.
Hmm.
For fielding. So straight ahead, angle, side, back over your shoulder, and you'll do it 3 steps, 6 steps, 9 steps. Or and then there's a sprint day, and there's 230-meter sprints, acceleration. Then there's a curves, 230-meter curves. Then there's 230-meter angles, like
Hmm.
that. So that's well, I don't know if it's distorting. You're preparing for the type of speed you have to have in the
Yeah.
game. No, so
Perfect. I actually have a question in the live chat here. He's asking, can belt squats replace back and front squats as the main squat pattern movement for building leg strength? Is losing spinal loading bad for performance?
there's two questions there. Bell squats, I think for a lot of people with a long, tall back, basketball players, even some of your big are really good. Really good. Now again, the spine loading the spine is the biggest concern that I have now with with racking cleans and with back squats. And I know you have to do it at certain times when you have to move somebody and you have to overcome, resistance. But over the years, it's become less and less and less. It will get into it, get out of it. But yes, I think bell squats are a good way.
Mhm.
Uh, Substitute,
I
yes,
believe it was
absolutely.
Gronk. Gronk, his whole career, he only belt squatted. I think there was a
Yeah,
clip online. So,
yeah, because he had a really bad back. Yeah,
mm.
yeah, yeah, and yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't have very many hands off kind of things, but having my daughter who was a really good athlete hurt her back at Rice in going over and having them do heavy squats after a heavy sprint workout, and she's 42 now, and the back problem after having the baby, her first baby, the back problems have subsided, which is an interesting thing too with females, but we don't have that option. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I don't know what the infatuation with back squats is when I can do various heights of step ups. There's so many things that really I'm dancing around the word function, but functionally work the legs as part of the whole kinetic chain, is really good. And by the way, if I did belt squats, depending on the phase, I would marry or superset belt squats with an unloaded squat jump. So I might do sixes on belt squats and six, 3 or 4 sets of those, depending on the time of the year, things like that. So I'm getting the power end of it
Yeah.
too. So, yeah, yeah. So I
Yeah.
didn't know we were on live chat, but that's good. That's
Yeah,
good.
I just throw it up live and just see who joins if anyone asks questions, and sometimes people ask, sometimes people don't ask.
You're
Leave it
out
there.
there, ask questions because
Yeah,
love them. I love
yeah,
them.
it's good.
That's how we learn. So
And I know you've got a new book that is out or coming out at least.
it's
Do you want
coming
maybe
out.
run through what's in that book? Maybe that's different to some of your previous ones, like athletic development, and some of your other, I guess, little training manuals.
Yeah, it looks more. It probably looks to you maybe a little more like about a third of it looks a little bit more like the gain manual, a little bit, and then the first part is, I address culture, coaching philosophy, the role of sports science, the role of leadership, all of that. So it's really more. Uh, well, it's not a supplement; it's a complement to the athletic development book. It's the athletic development book was written 20 years ago,
Dude,
came out.
that thing is so good. For anyone listening, pick up the athletic development book because it has so many different things you can pick up and literally implement. Like
Yeah.
the medicine ball work and stuff like that is it's yeah, it's good.
Well,
It's really good.
there's a fair bit of that in the new book, and I think it's a reflection of lessons learned over 56 years. There's the prologue is kind of a long story of my jaded athletic career and coaching career, in terms of no, I mean it's not just I think a coach at any level would would really get a lot from it. It's not heavy on sample workouts. I think there's more of that in the athletic development book. It's kind of I would say it's a little bit more of the whys of some of the
Mm.
things. So yeah, yeah, yeah.
You spend more time thinking and philosophizing over everything into a book.
Yeah, to a certain extent. I tried really hard. Martin Bingesser
Mm.
helped me with it, and I tried really hard to make it something that would be a manual that a coach could take out to the field, take out to the weight room too, as a resource. All the leg circuit progressions are in there, dumbbell
Nice.
complex progressions in there, a lot of stuff that I've picked up, from Nick Garcia because he's working with that real rich age from 14 to
Mm.
18, that developmental level age too, and stuff like that. So yeah, thanks for asking about it. And you can get it at hammermedia.com or thegainnetwork.com. It's available for pre-sale now, but it'll be out. What are we? The 13th. It'll be out by American Thanksgiving if you have
Oh, yep.
foreign. I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Perfect. I'm gonna link that up in the description as well.
Took a long time. It's a process.
I can imagine. And you talked. It's funny enough. You talked about when you talk about your cricket player training around using steps instead of distance, and it's
Yeah.
interesting because you sparked in my mind. I remember when I called you during one of the rugby camps, and I was having issues with potential players pulling up sore because cold, wet, snow, ice, training on turf, training on grass, playing on
Yeah.
this, fuck, just going everywhere. And I was like, how am I going to get speed work done? And something that I've used since is you like have them build up to whenever they feel comfortable or 90%, and then when they feel comfortable, 8 to 12 steps at
Yeah.
100%, and then they
Yeah.
just coast out. And that's
Yeah.
been that's been epic. And I don't know, do you have any more things, little things like that, like typically
Well,
like that?
yeah, I mean, yeah, again, and this is the benefit of coming from track and field backgrounds and also working across sports and with developmental athletes. Yeah, so build into it, hit top speed. You're still accelerating, you're
Mm-hmm.
accelerating from a slower speed to top speed. But I this goes back to something that I really learned from Gary Winkler many, many years ago, at least 40 years ago. Again, so again, we'll do and it's usually a number of step acceleration. So I'll say today it's 12-step acceleration. Well, 12-step acceleration for a decently fast rugby player is around 20 meters. I'm not timing them, but a lot of times I'll look and I'll watch where the 12 step is. They may not be pushing enough to, they may be pitter pattering too much. So that's one thing. And I think that the other part of this is using a pulley device, a 1080, which is $20,000, which we don't all have,
Yep.
but use a pulley device. There's a lot of pulley devices. But what we do, we try to get people to run faster than they're capable of running. So I'll do things. I've done this with 12-year-old soccer players. Where I put the pulley device on them and I walk them through it once. I go walking up to running, walk into run, and then they feel comfortable. And then I'll have them run a little bit and tow them up to speed, and I check them. Then we'll go standing start. The device is right on their belly button, basically, and I'll pull them for uh, like 4 or 5 steps as hard as I can and release them. So get them up to speed, get them up to speed like that. Another good way to do it, and if you look around in your training venues, is find just a gradual, maybe like the slope of a pitcher's mound in
Mm.
baseball. We used to use in baseball, where you have 1, 2, 3 steps on the incline, and then you're right to level. Well, if you don't have good control of your stride, when you go to level, you break. So use an incline, a slight incline, to overcome inertia. And then so you carry that speed out. Yeah, those are I mean, you don't have to, and sometimes too, this sounds really crazy, but I do this because I don't want the kids, and these can be 30-year-old kids too. I'll stand behind them, and I'll just right on their low back. I'll give them a big shove, okay, and they have to get their foot down
Mm.
to accelerate. You see, so that's pretty specific to a lot of sports.
Yeah.
But and from that they'll go a 6-step acceleration. Or I'll stand next to them and give them a big shove on their right hip, and they have to reorient to align. So those are all speed development uh, types of activities that carry over uh, to games. Too.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, I used to do something similar with. I'd have them jump, and I'd have another player.
hit them.
So yeah, like not stand there because then they know which way they're going to get pushed. Just a circle around them so they don't know.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
push them in the air, land in it, and accelerate. And yeah, same thing.
sure.
Trying to
No,
reorientate.
that's really obviously really important in soccer on 50-50 balls in the air. Really
Mm.
important in rugby on lineouts. Well, not just lineouts, but
The
and
wingers
it's
jumping for balls and stuff.
yeah, and it's important in basketball. You don't have to
Mm.
give them as hard a shove because that's a foul, but you just give them a nudge, and then so they start to learn how to land on balance and then do something with it.
Mm.
Okay, that's the key thing. Don't just land. Make them have to go
Yeah.
2 or 3 steps. So they have to take the activity and apply it. As That's crucial.
It's
Yeah.
just, that's something I have against deceleration, because
Oh God.
I've never done pure deceleration drills, and every time I look at them, I really don't like them. And it's just this idea that you're you're never stopping in this perfect straight line, and you're never just stopping either, because you're reorientating essentially every single time. It's always a change of direction. So I was wondering what your thoughts on kind of just
Well, the
some of these.
guy, can't think of his name. It's elegant, the work that they're doing on deceleration, but it's artificial. So it's like, what are you decelerating to? That's the first thing that I ask. Are you decelerating to a full stop? Are you decelerating to change direction? Are you reversing direction in that? So you know, change of direction is implicit in most of our team sport and game sport activities, and so I build a good foundation with strength training in and out of the weight room. Plyos are going to help me with that. But in terms of, and I've done some of the drop and stop stuff. I don't know. Is it, uh, if it creates an awareness, I know sometimes but Bill Knowles and I are always talking about this. You're landing. What happens? There's very few activities where we land.
Mhm.
We're getting ready to do something else. And so that's my attitude toward deceleration. I think you can learn a lot um, by some of the work that they're doing, but a lot of it is artificial. And I think programming, well, here's the epitome of agility and deceleration, reacceleration, triple jump and long jump. So a world class long jumper is running down the runway at 10 point something meters per second, hits the board, and has to now convert that horizontal velocity to vertical velocity and do it with minimal deceleration.
Mm.
So I look at that, and then the triple jumper has 3 phases. So I look at that, and I try to look at that in the context of what I have to do with my cricket player or with my soccer player or something like that.
Mm.
So is that
Yeah.
so? And so if you look in the new book, I'm not trying to sell the new book, but I don't have deceleration as a component. I have change of direction as a component. When you look at your training factors, and there's various change of direction drills, but most all the change of direction drills that I do involve a, 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 a start, a stop, a reacceleration type of thing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. We're definitely on the same page there. Yeah. I see just a lot of straight line, like sprint deceleration. They're trying to stop in that one leg in that perfect position, torso over the leg kind of thing. I'm like, maybe I guess they just call it deceleration capacity or something, but it's like doesn't you're not doing anything. Like you're never doing that
too
ever.
artificial, and you're doing it. You're bringing it to a conscious level. And the other thing that I said this on a note to, I think it's Harper's. Good people. They're really working hard, and I'm not trying to put them down. And they're coming. Is the role that the trunk plays? It's huge in terms of changing direction.
Mm.
So that's where all the medicine ball work and all the partner stuff comes in.
Mm.
If you want to really work on deceleration ability, just do a bunch more standing medicine ball and plate twist and things like that with a step. And I mean, look at the mass there. Even in a 60-kilo girls soccer player, that the mass in that trunk. So it's not core strength per se. It's the whole trunk
Yeah.
tied into, again, same theme,
Yeah.
kinetic
That's
chain.
that's pretty much one of my favorite exercises I've taken from him. That step twist and step and lean.
Oh yeah,
I do those all the time now. They're like they're like some of my favorite things to do in warm ups
yeah,
and things like that. Just
yeah.
feels so good too. Like it just opens up your spine
It's
and
cheaper than a
yeah.
chiropractor.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Yeah.
I was talking to Martin not long ago about game. What are you currently doing with it? I think you mentioned that there's no more big games. You're
Well,
looking
we're
maybe
doing
doing
one
weekend.
more. we're calling it, if you, any of the fans of the band, the band from, they're all dead now. They just, Robbie Robertson, they did a movie called The Last Dance with Martin Scorsese. They did it here in San Francisco when they broke up. So we're going to have the Gain Last Dance. It's going to be June, right now, I think June 16, 17, and 18 at Nick Garcia's place at Notre Dame High School in
Hmm.
Sherman Oaks. Um, uh, it'll be non-residential, so people will have their own hotels, but it'll be the same kind of format: long days, more more mix of I don't want to call it lecture or presentation, practical,
Hmm.
just because at his, we can do everything within about a 300-meter radius. It's
Oh, nice.
beautiful, so yeah, and that's Sherman Oaks is LA, so you can fly into LA, Burbank, and that. So it should be fun. And then after that, the game is not going to die for the listeners. And we can't. I found out you can't put the link on, what do you call it? Zoom link on. I got excoriated by Zoom. I put it on Twitter and that kind of stuff. So if you drop me a note or drop Martin a note, why don't you put Martin in the,
Mm-hmm.
and then we do a coffee talk once a month. We might expand that to twice. But then what we're going to do is we're going to do 1 day gains. So
Mm.
around the country and that. Jimmy Radcliffe and I primarily, and then one other person. So, but it's not a restart. I mean, we did is going to be in July, in mid-July. So it's right at the end of the World Cup in soccer. Some people said, but c'est la vie. I mean, you can watch the games on TV that night or something like that.
Well, I look forward to the day game in Austin when it eventually comes through.
Well, we'd love to do one. We'd
Yeah.
love to do one. What we're doing is we're putting the impetus on the people at the various sites. If they can arrange the hosting, then we certainly would be willing to do that. Jimmy's wife got her PhD at Texas. I don't know if you know that.
No, I
So
didn't.
he's been to Austin quite a bit. So I'll come anytime I can and have some more barbecue.
Oh
So
yeah.
I love that Texas barbecue. So for sure, for sure.
Perfect. I appreciate you coming on, Vern. Is there anywhere where people can follow you and keep up with your rants and what you're doing?
Well, yeah, I'm on. Let's see, X is at Coach Gambetta. Facebook is just me, I think, Vern Gambetta. LinkedIn is Vern Gambetta, and then Instagram is here.
Instagram's also Coach Gambetta.
Is that Coach Gambetta?
Yeah.
Is that Instagram?
Yeah.
Okay,
Well,
that's
wait.
another thing. I mean,
Unless it's your old one. I thought you were a GTS coach at one point.
no, GSTS.
GS.
It's GS Gambetta Sports Training Systems.
Oh, there
G,
you are.
huh?
Yeah, yeah. No, you have two of them. GSTS coach, and you also have Coach Gambetta.
On Instagram.
Yeah, but your GSTS coach is your main one. It looks like.
Oh, really? Okay, that's where I've been putting stuff up on. Guys, I'm just I was born in an analog world, and I'll probably die in an analog. I mean, I'm not that much of a luddite, but the whole social media thing again. That somebody said, "Well, how many followers do you have?" I don't know, and I don't care. That's never been the purpose. And they said, "Well, why do you post so much?" Because I want to share what I've learned. And I'm, yeah, I get paid if you come to Gain, but I'd love to have me in and consult. But I had people help me 40, 50 years ago, even in the last few years, that didn't charge a dime. So that's the goal to me with these vehicles that we have, is let's share good information and be professional in that. So anyway, it sounds very altruistic, but
Yeah.
maybe it is. I don't know. So
Perfect. Well, I'll link all those up in the description anyway when this comes out. And I appreciate you coming on, Vern.
no, thank you very much. Appreciate it.